You boys be quiet down there!
Welcome back to PC-88 Paradise, the series where we take a close look at classic games for the NEC PC-88, the most popular Japanese PC series of the 1980s. The first Valis game was terrible, and I'm not talking about the Valis one that you may have played on the Mega Drive or PC Engine. That's a remake that was made much later. I'm talking about this mess, which I made a video about last year. This game was actually quite a success due to its memorable cutscenes and characters. It was made by Wolf Team, a development team that broke off from Telenet and became their own company soon after. So imagine now it's 1989, 3 years after the first game. Wolf Team is no longer with the company, but Telenet still owns the rights to Valis. Why not capitalize on the game's popularity with a sequel? In fact, why not 2 sequels? Telenet put together 2 development teams, one to make a console version of Valis 2 that was released on the PC Engine CD, known as the TurboGrafx CD in the West. This is the version that I've always been more familiar with, and was actually the first version of Valis 2 to be released. But simultaneously, a separate team was working on a completely different game, also called Valis 2, which came out for Japanese PCs the following month. This other Valis 2 would be released on the PC-88, PC-98, MSX2, and eventually the Sharp X68000. This is the Valis 2 that I want to talk about in this video. Specifically, let's play through the PC-88 version together here on PC-88 Paradise. What I really want to find out is it any better than those terrible PC versions of Valis 1? Only one way to find out. So anyway, here's the PC-88 version of Valis 2. It's a bit harder to find and more expensive than the first one, and this copy is in great condition. It comes in a box this time, which contains a cardboard tray holding the goodies. First there's a flyer for the soundtrack cassette and CD for the game, and another one for Valis Club 2, a VHS tape with behind-the-scenes interviews and material related to the making of the game. Then we have a survey card and a user support request form for customers having trouble with their floppy disks. The manual has tons of great illustrations in the story and characters section. And in the very back, there's info on how to join the Telenet Users Club, with a separate form for paying the yearly members fee through the Japan Post Office if you decide to join. And thanks a lot to the previous owner for writing this phone number in the manual with a pen. Finally, there's a plastic case holding the floppy disks. Reno, Renovation Game. Nothing but Telenet for your entertainment. The game is stored on 7 floppy disks, quite an increase from the first game. To start, we simply insert the first 2 disks into the system. We start with the Reno logo. Reno was just one of Telenet's publishing divisions started in the late 80s, and doesn't really mean anything in particular regarding who developed the game. So whenever you see this logo, you should just think Telenet. And yes, the name is definitely related to Renovation, Telenet's short-lived North American subsidiary they used for publishing games on the Genesis. Next, we'll choose Analog Monitor to get full color, and then we have a choice whether or not to load PCM data. If we choose to do this, we're prompted to insert Disk G in Drive 2. Disk G has a special notice written on it. This disk contains PCM data for the soundboard too, so let's put that in. The PCM data takes about 1 minute to load. At first I wondered where in the world the PC-88 could be putting all this data, but then I remembered the soundboard 2 has 256 kilobytes of dedicated 80 PCM RAM, which may not sound like much, but keep in mind that's most of what a PC-88 floppy disk holds. So thanks to all that PCM, the opening is fully voiced. Quite a neat trick for an 8-bit computer. Yuko is played here by Sumi Shimamoto, a well-known voice actor at the time, who also played her in the PC Engine games. The opening of Valis 2 begins with Reiko, who died in the first game. warning Yuko that the dark world of Vacanti has now been taken over by a recently resurrected evil king, and that Yuko's power is needed again. Yuko is then attacked by a dark figure before she wakes up. Just as she is wondering if this recurring dream might actually be real, a shadow appears outside and breaks through her window. And so the adventure begins. The awesome title screen theme and the rest of the Valis 2 soundtrack was again composed primarily by Shinobu Ogawa, but this time he's joined by two other maestros of the FM sound chip. The music does a great job of retaining the style laid out in the first one, while utilizing newer FM technology on the soundboard too, for a much less harsh and more enjoyable sound. Press enter to start, and we're asked to put disc B back in drive 2. The game itself is stored on the first 3 discs of the game, and the remaining 4 are just cutscenes and PCM samples. We can choose to load a saved game here, but instead we'll choose Initial Start, and we rush into Act 1. Suddenly, Vogues make an assault upon you. Oh no, not Vogues. So we start out in Tokyo with Yuko in her pajamas. Just like in the first game, the right trigger button is used to swing the sword, and you jump by pressing up on the D-pad. Otherwise, this is actually looking completely different from the first game, which is quite promising. The first stage music is also catchy as hell, until you take a few hits and the music changes to let you know you're almost dead, just like in the first one. Such a shame that you start with quite a low HP max, so you can hardly enjoy the first stage BGM. Die and you'll be carried away by Valia, the queen from the first game. Throw away your perplexity. Believe Valis power. I'll believe once this game starts to actually get good. Now we'll have to start all over from the beginning. The first bit of help we'll get is this bullet weapon near the beginning of the stage, so at least now our attack has some reach to it. Next, there's this S that doesn't seem to do anything when you pick it up. Open the menu by either pressing F1 or the left trigger button while crouching. The battle was interrupted. Enter the select mode. Yeah, I'll say it was interrupted. The action comes to a complete halt as you wait for the menu to open. This menu is the other place where you can hear a couple of PCM voices, like in the opening. Here we can change our offensive weapon, but we only have the bullet level 1 that we picked up earlier. Under defense, it's time to play dress up with Yuko. We can change to the sailor suit, which was the S we just picked up. This increases Yuko's HP max. Finally, we can also change the special weapon at the bottom once we have one. Back out of the menu, and the music is back to the normal stage 1 theme, thanks to our increased HP max. Shortly after, in the second half of the stage, we'll pick up the Blazer for an even higher max. So now we've had 2 wardrobe changes already in the first stage. Things get difficult once we reach this platforming section where we have to avoid falling into the water. But then just a bit easier when we pick up the time stop ability, which you execute with the left trigger button.
Stop the world, I want a wireless. Wireless.
But remember that if you press this same button while crouching, you'll interrupt the action and open the menu. I know they wanted to make sure you could open the menu with the gamepad, but I found myself accidentally opening the menu a little too often. If I could redesign the game's control scheme, I would use only the keyboard for the menu, then make it more like the Castlevania-style layout of the TurboGrafx games, with right trigger to jump, left trigger to attack, and up plus attack for special abilities. Oh well, can't have everything, I guess. Just before the boss, there's an item to restore you to maximum HP. The game never lets you fight a boss without all your HP. It would be nice though if there were occasional HP restoration items that appear throughout the stages, rather than just the very end. So the first boss, Zaluga, is making a rumbling of the earth. Yeah, I hate it when bosses do that. We have to avoid all these flying rocks before Zaluga shows himself. Once he finally does, he isn't too difficult. We have to hit him in the head and make sure to avoid his shots, even if it means retreating way over to the left. Certainly you have broken through a formidable foe. Enter the visual scene. We have to change discs at the beginning and end of each cutscene. Just like in the first Valis, they're really the main draw of the game, and they've been ramped up even further in the second.
ビジュアルの絵の枚数がとてもたくさんありまして、しかもそれが全てアニメーション スクロール、目パチとか口パクとか全てするという量も質も前作をはるかに上回って格段にすごい出来になっていると思うので、そこら辺ちょっと見ていただきたいなと思います。
Unlike the first game, the cutscenes occur between every stage and are incredibly long. This first one takes 10.5 minutes to watch, and there's no way to speed up the text. You can choose to skip them entirely though if you're not interested. These don't have voices, by the way, only the opening does. In this first one we learn that Zaluga was a follower of Roguelis, the end boss of the first game. Now demons who were opposed to Roguelis have opened a forbidden door and resurrected the evil king, Megas, who is hunting down and enslaving the remaining followers of Roguelis. Zaluga says it's all Yuko's fault for destroying Roguelis. I don't see how that's her fault. If Country A takes out a dictator in Country B, creating a power vacuum allowing someone even worse to take over, okay, actually that would be kind of Country A's fault. But Yuko didn't know any better. In the first game, she was just sucked suddenly into this other world, given a sword and a suit, and told that she must take out this guy named Roguelis. Give her a break. Zaluga has time to talk a lot before he finally dies. Then Valia speaks to Yuko to confirm everything Zaluga just said, but urges Yuko not to lose hope. As the warrior of Valis, Yuko may just have what it takes to destroy Megas. But there's still one more scene where we see Megas speaking to one of his minions, this cool chameleon guy. Their plan is to have Roguelis' remaining followers take out Yuko and Vacanti, and wait for Valia to reveal her location there when she attempts to communicate with Yuko. At the end of the cutscene, we can save our game, just like in the first game. Data is stored on Disk B, and as usual I used a backup disk for saving. Rush into Act 2. New King has dominated Vacanti. Clasp the Valis sword. Like the first game, after the initial challenge of Stage 1, the game gets a little easier for a while. Here things become a bit more maze-like for the remainder of the game, which is quite a contrast from the linear stages of the console version. It's still thankfully far more manageable than Valis 1 for PC. I despise that stupid arrow behind the level indicator that's supposed to show you where to go. It's tempting to just proceed forward through the stages without completely exploring them, but doing so will cause you to miss important items. Power-ups only appear once in the game, and you accumulate them throughout the adventure, so you're definitely going to want to try to find all or most of them in order to make the final brutal stages of the game a little more manageable. In Act 2, we obtain the Jump power-up, increasing Yuko's jump height, as well as a couple of new weapons, the laser and the cluster shot. Sondern has so many sore heads. They're definitely going to be sore once I'm done with them. The auto-scrolling on this boss is a little annoying, but even just screwing around, it's pretty easy to beat this one on the first try. In the second cutscene, Yuko calls out to Valia, but Valia refuses to answer now that Yuko is in Vacanti, as it will reveal her position to Megas. Valia and her servants are biding their time as they prepare a shield to protect them from Megas' Vacanta cannon. We also learn that the magical jewels Yuko needed to obtain in the first game, called the Phantasm Jewelry, have fallen into the hands of one of Roguelis' former followers named Gaius. Rush into Act 3. Valia should not be able to help you. Well, that sucks, but so far I'm not needing much help. Stage 3 is just as easy as Stage 2. Here we obtain the Exploder weapon, which can break through some of the walls and floors. We'll need to do this to find our way through the stage. There's no breakable terrain in any of the other stages, by the way. Act 3 is also the first stage where the music is kind of boring. Gaius is keeping the Phantasm Jewelry. Hey, Gaius looks exactly like Roguelis on the cover of the first game. I guess the second phase is supposed to be his true form. In the cutscene, Gaius tells Yuko that Roguelis was a much better king than Megas. Sure, he may have been trying to destroy the world and all, but unlike Megas, he really cared about his troops. He was a really great guy once you got to know him. He tries to give Yuko the Phantasm Jewelry, but instead it falls into the hands of one of Megas' generals named Hyzen. Megas' voice booms out and tries to convince Yuko that Valia has abandoned her. Valia becomes even more tempted to call out to Yuko, but her servants remind her that she mustn't. Rush into Act 4. At last, the cruel King Megas came in sight with a thunder. Well, we couldn't really see his face though, could we? Stage 4 is an auto-scrolling stage that plays like a shooter. Well, a shooter where you can turn around and shoot backwards anyway. But if you think you can just fly forever, you'd be wrong. Your special weapon power drains gradually throughout the stage, and if it drains to 0, you can no longer fly and are as good as dead. So you'll have to pick up lots of these red and blue gems to restore your weapon power, and try not to use your special weapons too much. Hyzen was manipulated by his occiput. Occiput apparently is a medical term meaning the back of the head. And this actually makes sense since Hyzen's second phase is this face hugger from Aliens that I guess was controlling him from the back of his head. Anyway, seems not too difficult if you can manage to get here with enough weapon power to stay airborne. Yuko learns that Hyzen doesn't have the Phantasm jewelry anymore. It's already fallen into the hands of Megas. Yuko is badly injured and no longer has the strength to go on. Valia finally gives in and goes to Yuko, revealing her position. Megas fires the Vacanta cannon, but at first Valia's incomplete shield holds. Megas raises the power, getting through the shield but also destroying the Vacanta cannon in the process. It doesn't show what happens next, but Valia's servants explain that Valia seems to have vanished, which apparently means she must have been captured by Megas. Rush into Act 5. Valia became a prisoner. Deliver from Megas. This is the second last stage of the game, where there's a sudden huge jump in difficulty. I was stuck on this stage for at least a couple days worth of play sessions. At least the music is pretty cool, though I got kinda sick of it. The first part of the stage has you climbing gradually upward through several floors connected by stairways. One weird thing you can do in this stage is collect a costume called Reiko Type that looks similar to Reiko's costume from the first game, but it's a trap by Megas. The costume reduces your stats and can't be removed, unless you collect the special item located a bit of a distance away. It's much easier though to just make sure you don't collect it next time when you inevitably die and have to restart the stage. The second part of this stage with all these elevators sucks too. The way through is unintuitive, and it's very easy to die and get sent all the way back to the first part of the stage. It sure would be nice to have an HP restoration power up in here somewhere. Finally, the boss. Bazoon divides himself and produces a lot of larvas. Make sure to use the exploder weapon here, or you're likely to lose and have to do the whole stage over and over until you manage to reach this boss again. Yuko finally finds herself face to face with Megas. This is where we're going to have to put a spoiler warning before moving on. Megas tells Yuko to surrender if she wants to save Valia. She lays down her sword and surrenders, and just for the fan service, Megas has her remove her Valis suit as well. Then he goes ahead and kills Valia anyway. Yeah, that's the Valis series for you. Never shies away from being dark and cruel as hell. Just when it looks like all is lost, someone flies in to save Yuko. It's Reiko, who died in the first game.
Father McGrath, I thought you were dead.
I was.
Reiko explains that she had a wish that she could be born again to help Yuko, and the wish was granted by Valia. Reiko gives Yuko the Phantasm jewelry, which Valia had managed to get back from Megas earlier. This gives Yuko the Hypersuit, which increases her HP max to the end of the screen. Rush into Act 6. Valia was killed, but Reiko have been. Try conclusions with Megas. Hey Reiko, how you been? Oh, you know, I've been. That's great! From now on, when we die, we'll be carried away by Reiko instead of Valia. The final act is another shooter stage, and this one is just as hard or even harder than Act 5. It's long and includes several different sections and 2 mini-bosses. Aji, you will be driven from pillar to post. Ooh, that sounds painful. And a little later, there's the second mini-boss. I wonder what that one says. Ah, same thing. Lame. The time stop ability is practically a requirement to get through the final section of the stage alive, so you're going to need plenty of weapon power for that, while still leaving enough to keep you airborne. You just have to hope that enough of these blue gems appear to keep you powered. You're totally at the mercy of the game's random number generator. Sometimes it gives you hardly any, and other times it gives you tons. You just better make sure you also play well enough to win when it does. This stage probably took me even more tries to beat than the previous one. Megas. What? Again? Megas has 3 phases, one where his cape turns into a bird or some kind of flying lizard, and 2 in Megas's humanoid form. You're definitely going to want to use the exploder weapon again to have any hope in the final phase. It's the most damaging weapon in the game. Nice, all of your works have finished. The cruel king Megas have died, so vanity and reality should become peacefulness. I think this awesome win quote makes the whole ordeal worth it, as does this look on Megas' face. It's like he just can't believe he's been defeated and is really dying, which is exactly what he's saying here, by the way. Yuko explains that he couldn't have possibly won because he lacks the power of Valis, and that the power of Valis is really the power of love? Oh god. Yuko, are we really doing this? Surely we can come up with a better moral than that.
Love? Who's been screwing with this thing?
Valia has time to say a quick goodbye before fading away, and her daughter Valna becomes the new queen of the dream world, Vanity. Reiko also tells Yuko that she'll be watching over her always. Then there's this awesome animation showing Yuko transporting back to the real world and changing to her regular clothes. Hey, that's pretty damn cool for PC-88. Time for the credits. Since this game wasn't developed by Wolf Team, few people who worked on the first one are listed here. Exceptions include music composer Shinobu Ogawa, programmer Masayasu Yamamoto, and background designer Eiji Kikuchi. Other names that appear in both games seem to be credits like executive producers at Telenet and special thanks. After the credits, there's a screen announcing that now you're eligible to enter a drawing to win a Yuko Garage Kit. Garage kits are those models you have to put together and paint yourself. Here's the secret number you need to enter the drawing. I guess there's no reason to hide this now. Anyway, this message just repeats until you turn off your system. Maybe now I'll go play with the sound test, by either pressing F5 during the opening, or by booting Disk G. Valis 2 for PC-88 has great music, impressive voices and cutscenes, and much better graphics than the first one. It only has 6 stages, and the last 2 of them are hard as hell, but overall the gameplay is not bad. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to others, but it's pretty good, all things considered. I hate to use the phrase good for a PC-88 game, but I gotta say, as action games go on the PC-88, this is probably among the better ones. At the very least, the game is much more enjoyable than the first PC-88 Valis. As mentioned earlier, the PC version was also released for a few other PCs. The PC-98 version is graphically identical to the PC-88, but runs much faster, even with my PC-98 CPU turned all the way down to the lowest speed. It seems a little too fast, but you get used to it. The area where this version suffers is sound. This was made before there were stereo FM soundboards available for the PC-98, so the music uses the old monaural 26K soundboard. The PCM voices are gone as well. It is possible to produce voices on this soundboard like Microcabin did in Frey. But that would have meant figuring all that out and changing the way the voices are handled entirely, so I guess they just didn't bother. The MSX2 version, of course, is also missing the voices, but uses the FM pack for music. This version was done pretty well overall in my opinion, with smoother scrolling than the PC-88 version, and even some nice stationary backgrounds behind the scrolling playfield. This is also the only PC version of the game that has an English patch. I would recommend this version if you can tolerate some considerable slowdown in the gameplay, which occurs pretty frequently. Before the X68000 version was released, Telenet held auditions to name one lucky girl, Miss Yuko, who would serve as sort of a spokesperson for Telenet. Eventually Yuko Miyamoto was selected. I'm not sure if they selected her because her name is Yuko, but apparently that is her real name. For the X68000 version only, they had her play the voice of Yuko. I don't know if she did much else for Telenet, but she's gone on to have a long career as an actress on the stage, and even in TV and movies. The runner-up in the contest also got to play Reiko. The X68000 version has voices not only in the opening, but the ending as well. This version is by far the best looking of the PC versions, with much more color and detail and true parallax scrolling. And though I usually prefer the Soundboard 2 over the X68000 stereo FM sound chip, I think I prefer the X68000's music in this case. The positive things I can say about the X68000 version end there though. Supposedly they actually got Wolf Team to reprogram this version from the ground up, which actually explains a lot. The most obvious thing you'll notice is the scroll distance between Yuko and the edge of the screen. Not only that, but she seems to move faster when the screen isn't scrolling. This combined with the new enemy placements and stage layouts makes the game harder. I actually had a lot of trouble finishing the first stage in this one. The overall jankiness and lack of polish compared to the other versions becomes quickly apparent upon playing it for any significant period of time. It's especially sad because considering the system's specs, this really should be the best version of the game, but instead it's the worst. And especially when you consider that this system has no shortage of great action games, there's little reason for X68000 players to spend much time with this mess. Next, even though you know by now that it's a completely different game, here's the TurboGrafx PC Engine CD version. If you play only one Valis 2, you should probably make it this one. Though it isn't exactly a masterpiece either. Here you've got linear gameplay, and a CD soundtrack with completely different compositions from the PC versions, other than the title screen. The fully voiced cutscenes are available in either Japanese or English, and the characters and general gist of the story are the same as in the PC versions, though several important details are different. I don't know which version is considered canon, but I have a feeling it's probably this version just because this became the main platform for the series hereafter. Lastly, let's also mention Syd of Valis for Genesis, or Syd of Valis or whatever it's called. This is another game based roughly on the Valis 2 story, and a well-known terrible game. The English title is probably derived from the Japanese title SD Valis, by adding a Y and an of in there. I guess her name is Syd now instead of Yuko? That makes zero sense. Another weird fact is that the US cover of the game is actually taken from an unrelated Telenet game for the PC Engine called Nariagari Trendy, which is why the cover features Telenet characters who aren't in the game. As much as I love Telenet, they sure have released more than their share of janky crap over the years. Valis 2 was the last Valis game to be released on Japanese PCs. Although Telenet still occasionally released a PC game here and there, they shifted their focus over to the console market in the early 90s, and the Valis series is probably a lot better off for it. So, should you play the PC versions of Valis 2? I don't know, you can if you want, I guess. Play the PC-88 version for the voices, the PC-98 version for the fast gameplay, or the MSX2 version for the English patch. The X68000 version can look like quite a sexy option at first glance, but don't be fooled. Begone, vile temptress! Anyway, Valis 2 for PC-88. Maybe not a great game, but so much better than the first, and a technically impressive game for the system it was made for, in so many ways. Thanks for watching this episode of PC-88 Paradise. I'm glad I finally got around to making this one, and you can thank these people on your screen for helping to make that possible. I've still got a long list of PC-88 and PC-98 games I want to cover in the near future, so there should be plenty more Paradise episodes coming up. Hope to see you again soon.